we want to, I'm sure there are other people logging in. Yep. We've still got people coming in. We've got people on Facebook watching Facebook Live. We've got people here on Zoom. Just make sure I'm going to mute you all for now so that we can hear what's going on, because what is going on? Not much, right? Well, actually, there are so many people doing online activities. There are a lot of people doing stuff, and I'm thrilled that we have the ability to do that, where we can stay in touch with each other. I actually miss seeing you guys. Looking at your faces now, I'm just like, oh, it's been a while. And isn't it amazing how these bands affect us, how these groups, we get used to being in the same place, same time, seeing the same people. Even if we don't get to chat every week, it's just like we still miss that social connection. So that's why we're doing this. That's why we're doing this repertoire workshop. It may or may not be long. Not entirely sure. Yeah, Jeff was still late. Can't make it on time on a Tuesday night, but well, no excuse this time, dude. So it's cool that we can get together like this, just to keep together. I think I did think about trying a virtual orchestra, a virtual band, all that kind of stuff. Number one, there's a lot out there, and number two, it's a nightmare. To do it live, with everyone's systems picking up things at different, there's no point. So what we are doing is everyone who was registered for the April concert, I hope you've kept your folders. If you have kept your folder, then tomorrow you're going to get an email saying, you know what, for the next week, practice these sections. All right. And so you can actually get the instrument out, which I know a lot of people are struggling with right now. A lot of people are struggling with actually motivation to pick up the instrument and play. It's like, well, why bother? So we're sending out some repertoire sections, repertoire lists, just little sections, 2 or 3 things each week, just for you to focus on for a day or 2 or 3. Now, you know what is going to happen? This is actually going to possibly encourage quite a few people to practice when they normally wouldn't. We've all got lives. So I don't normally expect people to practice during the week, but who knows, this may actually prompt a different behavior. It may actually prompt something else. Now, I know we've still got people logging in, which is awesome, and we've also got people watching online on our Facebook page. I'm sure, Bev, are you on that as well? Are you looking on the Facebook page as well?
Yeah, I'm monitoring it.
Okay, cool. So if you wouldn't mind just keeping an eye on those comments, that would be awesome. In case anyone comments on there. Cool. So here we are for a faux FAUX DCB repertoire workshop thing. One of the pieces that we've played a while back. You know what? Should I record this? Let me go ahead and record this, because you never know. Okay. So here we are at the Dunedin Concert Band's normal rehearsal time and night, Tuesday, 7 o'clock. We're getting started a little bit late today. People are working out the technology, figuring out how to log in. We're here on Zoom, which is the best place to be. We're also live on our Facebook page right now at Dunedin Concert Band, so people can follow along there as well. We've got people monitoring both comments in both places. In case you do have something to share, then that's great. If we are struggling to play our instruments, if we're struggling with motivation to pick up and play because there's nothing to aim for, there's nothing to go for, there are people out there who are struggling with that. There are also people out there who are loving this because they're not forced to actually run or produce an outcome. So they're actually playing for themselves, whatever they want to do, which I think is terrific. So what we figured we would do as our group is just take a look at some of the repertoire that's in our folders now, that we've had in our folders in the past, and also stuff that's coming up. and just have a look at the repertoire over the next 8 weeks. Pick a piece of music, so it won't be a full 2-hour session at all, even if it's, I mean, not even an hour. But have a look at some of the repertoire and just see what it's about, and just explore it a little bit. And another thing, if you just logged in, if you've kept your folder from the April concert, we're going to send out some repertoire for you to practice over the next week. Not much, okay? As I say, we don't expect people to practice, but you may want to just pick up and play something. Well, if you haven't got anything in the library, then we're going to send you some repertoire, little sections, and there's also a new piece coming out as well in a couple of weeks as well. So you'll get that sent to you with a link where you can download your sheet music. All right, so today we are going to look at Jubilee Overture by Philip Sparke. Yay, one of my favorite pieces of music. First came across this in college. When I founded the concert band at Trinity College of Music. We called it the Trinity Student Symphonic Winds, TSSW. It was a student-run organization, and we did one full year. We had 3 concerts, and it was really quite popular. In fact, the year after I left college, guess what? Yeah, they put a wind band on the curriculum. So, so somebody got paid to do it, whereas in my last year, I didn't. Oh, it seems to be the story of my life. So this is where I first came across Jubilee Overture, and it's a fabulous piece of music. I think I've done it with every concert band that I've worked with since. Now, Philip Sparke himself was actually he is a trumpet player, but he's really into brass bands. That British brass band scene, that's where he specializes. That's where he feels most comfortable. And in fact, that's what this piece is about. Philip Sparke is written for, he's such a really intricate composer that really challenges people. There's a lot of his repertoire, and he's even had, if you don't know how the brass band scene works, certainly in the UK, when you go to a competition, every brass band plays the same piece of music. Okay, it's kind of intimidating, because the adjudicator, there's only one person, there's only one adjudicator, and they are enclosed in a box in the middle of the auditorium. So you know, if you just think of an auditorium with all the seats, then you'll see a little cage, a little box with screens around, and the adjudicator is in there all day long. However many bands are, however long the competition is, they are stuck in there the entire day. Now, every band in these competitions plays the same piece of music. The adjudicator can't see who it is. There's no announcement. There's no name. All they get is a number. So it's band number 1 plays a piece of music. For example, Jubilee Overture. They leave, band number 2 comes on. All right, so it's literally a 9-minute session you get on the stage. Band number 2 comes along, plays the same piece of music. They leave, band number 3 comes along, they play the same piece of music. That's how the competition works. Everyone plays the same piece. And it's quite fascinating hearing the different, you know, the whole variety of sounds and colors and interpretations of the same piece of music. But Philip Sparke, he's actually been a composer of those national champions final pieces of music several times at the Royal Albert Hall, and he's also won several competitions for new music as well. So I like Philip Sparke's music. It is different, it is exciting, it is tuneful, it's melodic, so I hope we'll do a lot more of that. Now, Jubilee Overture itself, it's nothing to do with the Queen and her Jubilees. All right, it's nothing to do with the royal family. It was actually the Jubilee, the 50th anniversary of the GUS brass band, the Gus brass band. GUS is a company that sponsored a brass band. People like Grimethorpe, you may have heard of Grimethorpe or Grimthorpe. You may have heard of Asphaltic. You may have heard of the Black Dyke. All of these names are the names of the company that hired miners, hired workers, and those workers got together and played music. So all the brass bands, most of the brass bands, 90% of them, I would say, in the UK are sponsored by a company. Now, there are amateur groups. In fact, you have to be amateur to participate in a brass band. However, in order to win these competitions, do you know what the mines did? They would hire these miners, and they would send them down the pits maybe once every 6 months. And then the rest of the time, 40 hours a week, they would be playing their instruments. That's how these bands got to be so good. And of course, those 40 hours include going around town and doing performances as well. But that was, I mean, we weren't allowed to call them full-time musicians because otherwise they couldn't compete. But they were miners who happened to play music more than they happened to be down the mine. So I think that's fascinating. So the Gus Brass Band is what this piece of music, the Jubilee Overture, was written for in 1983. Keith Wilkinson was their conductor. And then the next year, the following year, because it was so popular, Philip Sparke got a lot of requests to convert this to a wind band piece. So he did it himself. He didn't find an arranger. He actually rearranged it himself from brass band to wind band in 1984. Now, the piece itself, I still have allergies. It's not a virus, but I am coughing. That's why I go on mute. So the piece itself opens up with a 2-part fanfare. Okay, and it's got a beautiful brass flourish, and then there's a very reflective, calm, gentle chorale for the winds. It's a beautiful contrast, and that's just the opening. You've got that big sound in the brass followed by beautiful woodwind melody. This builds to a climax, and then it gets fast. Then the fun part comes. All right, the dance section, very very lively. It is allegro, so it's pretty fast. Lots of changes of meter, and we're going to listen when we listen to this piece and follow it along. There are a couple of comments to note about the meter and how we interpret that. But it includes a beautiful tune, very strong. It's a very commanding melody that the horns and saxophones throw back and forth to each other. And there are some sections where you get a little bit of cheesy syncopation going on as well, thrown in there, but most of it is just a very beautiful melody throughout the whole fast section. And then in the middle of the band, just this beautiful sound appears, a very smooth song-like melody emerges. It just suddenly appears. And because it's so beautiful, because it's so powerful and impacting, different sections of the band then pick up on it until eventually everyone is actually playing this beautiful smooth song-like melody before they go back to the dance party in the allegro. And then of course the ending, we hear the fanfare again just to announce that we are coming to the end of the piece, and then the presto coda, the very fast coda at the end of the piece. So that's the piece of music that we've got today. That's Jubilee Overture. Anyone got any questions, comments, concerns about the composer, about Philip Sparke, or about the piece, about what it's like? Anyone have any thoughts or comments they want to share? You can use the chat box in there. If you're on Facebook, we do have somebody keeping an eye on the Facebook comments as well. Yeah, that's Jubilee Overture. What we can do now, if I get this right, is we're going to go to listen. And I'm going to click that one there. All right. So can you give me a thumbs up if you can see a band on your screen? Excellent. And can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear the band? Excellent. Good. So that was awesome. I don't know if you heard that. We're obviously started with the brass fanfare, very powerful, very strong. But when those horns come in, there's a nice scrunchy chord on beat 2 that just punches through what we consider a normal fanfare. I'm going to go back a little bit and see if you can hear that. No, it wasn't. I didn't go back far enough. Here. Then we get the beautiful chorale. And that was a beautiful high note on the trumpet. Well done for hitting that. I think it's a high C. I don't have the score in front of me. One tricky thing about this particular performance, do you see that trombone, that bass trombone there? Unfortunately, the way this recording works, it's almost like it's a solo bass trombone piece accompanied by band. It's so prominent and unbalanced. This group have some wonderful dynamics. But we need to be careful. We need to listen to what's going on and fit in what's going on around you, okay? I'm going to go back to the entrance of that chorale because it's so beautiful. Did you hear that little brass injection there? And it's so quiet and in the background, it's just reminding us that they're still there, but also that there's military kind of precision going on amongst this beautiful chorale. It happens a few times throughout this piece. So the dynamics are terrific in this. I'm really enjoying these dynamics. But right now, because this is a beautiful, gentle melody, it's almost like everything has been taken down a notch. People are calm, they're gentle, they're quiet, they're not forcing, they're not actually trying to power their sound out above everyone else. They're just playing nice and gently for themselves, which I think is a very good way to actually get across, like mezzo piano, which they're doing pretty well here. Uh-oh, something interesting happening. Okay, not sure if you heard, there were 2 wrong notes in there, and that's okay. Everyone, you know, it happens. What I like about this section is you've got that triplet theme going on. Yeah, I know, Bill. So you've got that triplet theme going on. So there's something exciting, something different. All we've heard so far mostly is Jubilee time, fanfare, march type stuff. Now the winds are coming in with this triplet thing, but in the background, we still have that Jubilee time. There's a triplet against the Jubilee time going on. Let's back up a little bit so we can hear that effect. And we're back to the fanfare. Now, I have to say this was really disappointing in this group. The dynamics are there. The passion is not. Okay, there's a big difference. So we have this beautiful, smooth melody going on, this chorale in the winds. Then they turn to triplets to tell us that something different's going to happen. And it's against the Jubilee going on in the basses and the trombones and the baritones, and it builds, and then the dynamics, it gets louder and louder and louder, and then we're back to the fanfare. And that's what it feels like. Whereas to me, what should be happening is you've got the triplets going on, you've got that against the duple background, and it's getting louder and it's getting louder, and we're actually getting more excited because we're going to reach a climax, which is the fanfare. That's what it should be like. And this is very flat, very boring. It's technically accurate, and that's not music. Playing music technically accurately is not what music is. Music is a language of emotions, so we need a little more oomph, if you don't mind, And of course, that time, that high trumpet note was accompanied by the piccolos, flutes, and clarinets as well. So there's a little bit of support there. A bigger sound. This should be more impacting than the opening fanfare. The opening is literally just the brass. Here we've got everyone playing the fanfare, and it should really be just grating in your chest here because it's so powerful. But unfortunately, it's not right in this particular performance. The other thing was really interesting as well, and I forgot. All right, so we're going to end up towards the end of the fanfare. Let's see what happens next. I just remembered. So the tempo is what's exciting. It's slow enough for us to actually absorb what's going on, but it's not so slow that it's boring and disconnected. There's still a line, there's still a phrase going through this fanfare. You know it's heading somewhere, and you can feel that. The winds have enough time to get all their notes out. They have all these little frills and these little runs going on. They've got time to let those express. It's not so fast that it's just rushed and disappeared through, and it's not so slow that it's boring, that it's disconnected. So he's got a good tempo here going on. You can tell that we're coming up to the allegro. Okay, now we're into some fun. This is the exciting part. I'm sure those of you who've played this will remember this. This is the exciting part. So we had a little transition period there, which is very clever, I think, of Philip Sparke, because he's got very bare bones. We still got the fanfare kind of thing going on, dum, and then he does it twice, dum, dum. It just leaves us hanging. What's going on? This is not normal. This is very different to what we've heard before, although it's related, but it also kind of leads us into what's coming up next. And then the allegro itself has its own introduction. It doesn't launch into this wonderful melody that we can see right here. Where are we at? We're at 227. So around 225 or so, we're into this new melody. He doesn't launch into it. He builds up to that. So let's just listen to that transition again. Oh, isn't that fun? Oh, my goodness. Just can't wait to get into this. Yes, this is being, thank you, Bev. I appreciate that. Good question, Lee. So this is a great little allegro, a great little tune. It's exciting, it's interesting, it's melodic. The thing that I find with this is there are a couple of like 3/8 sections. There's actually a 5/8 bar in there, but there's a 3/8 bar and then there's a little bit of a 5/8 bar. Now, in the music itself, that 3/8 bar, that 5/8 bar, excuse me, that 5/8 bar is grouped into a group of 3 and then 2. Okay, you've got 3/8 notes followed by 2/8 notes. bum, 4-5-1, bum. It lands on the downbeat. Now, most people approach it as written, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, which is fine. It works as that is as written. But what I've found, somebody actually showed me after I'd done this piece, conducted this piece several times. They said, look, that beat 3 in that 5/8 bar is actually a kicking off point. You can launch on that beat 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. It kind of, it's that beat 3 that is the secret to kicking off what's coming next. That beat 3 will actually boost you into the 4, 5, 1. Let's go back a little bit and see if we can tell what I'm talking about. Here. So you have that bum, 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 4, 5, 1. Kicking it off on beat 3 is what actually makes a big difference. They're kind of missing that here. It's just one long phrase that goes all the way through, and you don't get that little bit of lift of excitement going on. We'll go back a little bit more and then carry on. I love the balance that they've got here. Everyone's backed off. It's clear that it's not just dynamically a more gentle section, but also just the feel of it. Yes, it's still allegro. Yes, there's still things going on, but it's little bits and pieces all over here. There's a bit there also. And that's why you can hear everything. You can hear that wonderful little oboe tune, the little run down, but hear what's coming next. I'm not sure if you heard it. It was that baritone part. Sorry to pick on the baritones, but I don't think I've ever heard this in a band where the baritones get that in time. They have a similar pattern to the oboe. That oboe is very exposed. The baritones have the same thing, but it's reversed. It goes up instead of down. And the timing is really seems to be really difficult for some reason to get it absolutely right. The second time they do it, the pattern happens twice, as you heard with the oboe, but the second time is always fine. The first time is usually not in time. There's a little delay, or they come in a little bit early and then they kind of pause a little bit because they think they're wrong, but they're not. So it's very interesting that that happens in most groups. Let's just go back a little bit. Do you hear that? And there again, we missed that kickoff. We missed that kind of bum. That just ends. It's like a comma. It's like a part of the sentence that just lets us know. Well, not a comma. Let's think of the exclamation point. This is the dot. That 4-5-1 is the dot of an exclamation point to me. Oh, that's my favorite saxophone note. All right, I love that note. It comes in not as an cacciatura, which is just on the just before the note plays, you do a little grace note before it. It's not a normal suspension, which is usually the beat before. This is a whole 3 beats before the melody comes in. The saxophones interject and say, "Okay, it's our turn. We're taking over the melody now." I love that. It's so fun. So one of the interesting things about that is how calm all these players are. And the reason is they're just playing the notes. In that particular section that we just heard, you need to. That's all you can do is just play the notes. There are so many. They're all over the place. There are instruments that don't normally have rapid passages who are trying to cope with those rapid passages. So you know what? Back off. Just do your thing. Just play the notes and get them out of there. That's what makes that section work and keep it in time. There's no panic. Right here. If you try and make music out of that, if you try and phrase those 3 or 4 bars, you're going to get completely lost, and your mind is not going to cope with it. The timing, the time signatures do change a little bit. Don't worry about it. Just play every single 8th note and 16th note where it's supposed to be. Nice dynamics. Oh, see, look at the dynamics, the change. You actually had to. I actually saw some of you in the picture leaning in, because what happened? The music backed off. We've got this nice allegro thing going on the dance. I'm, standing here dancing around. I have to do it here because I'm not allowed to do it on the podium. So we're dancing around at this little section here, and then all of a sudden the clarinets come in with something. What is this? There's a little bit of syncopation going on, but it focuses our attention on the left-hand side of the screen, because that's where everyone's looking and that's who's playing. That's where the sound is coming from. But then what happens? Okay, so we get a little bit of like an organ in the middle of that section. Those big swells. Ba-da-da. There's almost like an organ is playing there, and then the saxophones take over, and this is where we get very disjointed playing with this particular group. Dun, 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 dun. They've separated that from the whole phrase, the whole line of the piece of music. It's become its own thing, and it doesn't seem to fit. That's only because of the way that they're playing it. Let's go back and see if you can tell that difference. Where are the clarinets? Right? It just kind of like, okay, well, that's nice. I heard that syncopation just now in the clarinets, but it doesn't make much sense to what's going on. And I'm going to go back again because I want to hear those swells, those dynamic swells that come up in the middle. Really effective. Right here. Trumpets, please. Really? Did you have to? Did you hear them trying to interject there and say, hey, look, this isn't loud enough. This isn't fast enough for me. I want more. So they came they interjected with their own thing there. That's funny. All right. Where did this come from? Where did this melody come from? Hey, what happened there? It's like, wait a minute. We were going syncopation here, syncopation there, swells, organ sounds, tempo thing, and now all of a sudden we've got this low rumbling. I mean, what is that? Where did that come from? And seconds and third clarinets, you heard that ba 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 bam in the middle of that phrase. That is so important. It's vital that that's in there. Now the brass, the trombones, the baritones, the tubas, they've got the accompaniment, but then it's not an umpire accompaniment. It's a flowing thing. It's like a river going over some pebbles. It's constant. It's just going. It's flowing. Maybe more like an engine or a car going over a truck going over a road. It's constant. It's like a train almost, but it's not imposing. Do you see how much in the background it is? it's just happening back there. You've got this melody going on. It's low, it's enjoyable, it's getting to the meat of your heart, but this low bum 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 is going on in the background. Very clever writing, and they're playing it well. Seconds. There it is. Trumpet and flute and tambourine. Let's expand it a little more. Have you noticed how much they've been breathing? I bet you haven't. This is a long phrase. This is the time when you actually practice not breathing underwater for 2 minutes. All right. This is such a long phrase. There's barely any place to breathe, and you don't want to. If you have to breathe, let's not do it at the same time. Do it in the middle of the phrase somewhere. All right. Somebody else is going to cover the part for you. Those horns and the baritones have a beautiful counter melody. I'm going to go back and listen to it again, because you've got this main melody that started low, more instruments came in with the trumpets and the flutes, and then the oboes, saxophones joined it, and then you've got that low rumbling accompaniment, that pulsating pattern. But in the middle, there's a beautiful counter melody going on. Let's go back and just poke your ears towards that middle section, that little middle counter melody. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, how disappointing. Oh my goodness. So this is such a beautiful melody, and it's flowing, and it just gets really to us that Philip Sparke repeats the end of the melody. He tags it on again. He repeats it. If you look at most big endings of pieces of music, a lot of them end with a repeated pattern. They play the same thing twice, 3 times, or not 3, twice or 4 times. It's something about human nature that we like to know when something's ending. And he does is he ends that melody, and then he tags the last couple of bars on again. And because of that, it's like a swell, like a big sigh, like a movement. And this band, they just keep it flat. Like we said before, there's no passion. There's no emphasis of the fact that this is an emphasis of the point, of my point. Do you see how I repeated the end there? That sentence finished with "of my point" twice, because I wanted to make my point, to make my point. And you see, you don't say it exactly the same way. You can't. If you've ever done that, if you've ever repeated yourself to make a point, you've never repeated it the same way. I don't understand why they do it that way in this group. Dynamics could be more there. Here. You hear that repeat there at the end? Should have been made more of it. And then we get back into the dance. This is an exact repeat of what we heard before. Oh, beautiful. 4 tubas, look at that. And this is very tricky to do. Now we've got something completely different. We don't know what's going on, but you can see, and particularly in this oboe section, you'll see everyone's fingers move in different times because we want this constant ripple up. Balance is really tough here. Usually a lot of groups have their strongest players on the first parts, and then they leave parts 2 and 3 and whatever for players who maybe can't cope with the first part. That's not a sensible way of doing things. For times like this, you've got to have strong players on every part. Otherwise, that ripple effect, that constant turnover of ripples disappears. You can hear it in the clarinets in this group. You can hear the first clarinets play their part, and you don't really hear the seconds and thirds. When the oboes come in, you can both hear it and see it, that they're playing at different times, and you can actually hear that constant ripple. Let's go back a little bit. Okay, and again, there's no excitement here. We're back at the fanfare. This should be, oh, we've come home. I know this bit. I recognize this bit. This is how this started. I've gone full circle. And unfortunately, this group, again, it's just not there. This section is fortissimo. When we open, it's only forte. When we get back here at this point, it's fortissimo. That cymbal player should be making the most. I mean, look at the size of those cymbals. They look like 22-inch cymbals there. He should be making the most of those. You know, so that was a little bit disappointing. We'll live with it. No horns. Well, do you think that they were happy to finish? Do you think they were happy to get to the end? Hard to tell, right? I mean, really? That's it? That presto at the end is exciting. That's, yeah, we got home, we're happy. I'm going to have a glass of champagne because we got there with no train wrecks along the way. You know, this is awesome stuff. And it doesn't have to be, I mean, the faster a presto is, the better it is. That's what presto means, as fast as you can. So, you know, it can be a little bit more lively through their playing, but also in the tempo a little bit, I think. Da-dum, ba-dum. I mean, that's a cheeky little thing there from the trombones and the baritones. I think the saxophones have that as well. You know what? You can make something of that. All right, that's like a little kid running out of the car because everyone got home together. Little kids running out the car, very happy to be there. And then we finished, boom, boom. We all flopped down in the couch, in the chair after an exhausting run or something. So that's what Jubilee Overture is. That's what it sounds like. We heard the musical breakdown of this piece, and also we had some commentary on the performance. Give me a thumbs up if you would, if you think we should actually go and listen to the whole thing nonstop. It's only 6.5 minutes, but we should listen to it and try and catch all these things together at the same time. We can either do that on our own, or we can do that together. Now, in fact, I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if we've ever looked that relaxed. That's funny, Ginny. Not in this piece. I mean, this is a competition. This is not a regular performance, and I think that people have actually they've rehearsed this to high heaven. They've probably performed it many times indeed. They may be bored of it. It's like the Simon Bolivar Youth Orchestra, which goes up to age 25. That's the orchestra that made Gustavo Dudamel famous. They play mambo, and I've shared this with you guys. I love their version of mambo. It's terrific. It's fun. It's exciting. They never get tired of it because they make it into a party. They're not so worried about the piece. They know this piece backwards so much that they can enjoy it. They can have a party with it. They can just make fun. I mean, it is a party scene. This group here with this particular piece, it looks like they're not yet enjoying it. They've rehearsed it enough so that they know it darn well, so they can do it in competition, but they're not yet enjoying it themselves. So they know it well. That's what makes them look relaxed. Looking relaxed helps with the mezzo piano, calm, gentle music. Try it. Next time we have a nice passage that's calm and gentle, and it doesn't need to be forcibly played, try and make yourself look relaxed. Just, back off and maybe we can try that. All right. So yes, thank you, Jeff. I have danced before on the podium, not intentionally. I'll get you for that one. Any sense if the director is conveying or asking for the energy from the back, not seeing it? I absolutely agree with you, Tom. Yeah, it doesn't look like the director's asking for any energy. And of course, as in any organization, any structure, any entity where there's a group of people together, it's always going to reflect the personality or the energy from the leadership. So yeah, that's a good point. He's not asking for it. Maybe he doesn't know he needs it. I don't know. Any other questions, comments, concerns? You can go ahead and use the chat. Bev, do we have anything over on Facebook?
Oh, some questions. The endings needs more power and Team Low Brass.
Team Low Brass. Yeah, go Low Brass. That's funny. Yeah, they do need more power and energy. You're right there. Cool. So I'm going to play the whole thing. I'm going to play the whole thing now, all the way through, so that you can listen to all those points that we've spoken about. You can listen to those musical points. The analysis that we did earlier, and after that we'll see what happens. If you think of anything while it's playing, go ahead and put it in the chat. Okay. Awesome. Oh, that was terrific. Yeah, round of applause indeed. Good job. So I'm now convinced. I was not sure whether we would do this again in the near future, but I'm going to put it in for 2021. I think it's a lovely piece. Yeah, good. We're going to do this next year at some point. It's been a while, and it's just a fabulous piece to work with. Next week, next Tuesday night, we have scheduled to look at Suite Française, a couple of movements. There are 5 movements of Suite Française by Darius Milhaud, and we're going to perform this one in October. Okay, so this is the piece that's coming up in the future. So next week's workshop will be a good time to get to know a piece before we actually play it. All right, so I would love some feedback if you want to put in the chat box, Facebook, email, whatever else. If you liked this format, if you enjoyed this session, do let us know, and we'll do all 8 of them. If not, then we can do other things. We can think of something else to do. But let's spend some time together going over the repertoire that we have played, that we've got in our folders now, or that's coming up in the future. I mean, at least we can spend some time together, and maybe, who knows, you'll just discover something new and like a piece of music you didn't before, or vice versa. Who knows? So next week, please do spread the word. Tell people that weren't here today to make sure they do attend next week if you liked it. If you didn't like it, that's fine. We won't see you next week. Cool. I hope you guys stay safe. All right. We're not on lockdown yet. We can still go out and take advantage of that because it might be coming soon. Hopefully not. So stay safe. Look forward to seeing you in next week's workshop. Cheers. Bye, folks.